Amanda here from createyourfuture.co. So today I have Angela joining me. Hey, Angela.
Hi, Amanda.
Hey guys, we have an exciting video on thought transmission. We're going to talk about it, and we're also going to touch on feeling it real and explain some of these things for you. We have examples and success stories about thought transmission and how it is immediate. Just before I dive in, guys, Angela's having a sale, 20% off her coaching and courses for up till Valentine's Day. So definitely check it out. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, and we do have a free course, how to find your blocks to manifest anything fast. It's free. Definitely check out the link in the description below. So let's dive into it. So first, I'm going to explain how thought transmission works. Now, this explanation I'm giving you is out of Neville's book, Prayer, the Art of Believing. It's chapter 5, thought transmission. Crazy how I have this memorized, but I do. Okay. So I think I've read it on this channel about 1,000 times, well, maybe just 100. Okay. So how thought transmission works is when you have a thought, it is in your mind and it vibrates on the mirror of your mind. And then that light, your thought, we think of it as a light, it pings out to the one you're thinking about, that you're thinking of, and it pings on their mind and it vibrates in their mind and it reproduces exactly what you're thinking. So your thoughts only go out. Okay. No thoughts ever come into you because this is only a one-way street. Okay. So you're the operant power. You are like the broadcasting tower, and every thought that you have is instantly going out to whoever you're sending it to, whether it's just general or whether it's a specific person like Jerry. They're constantly picking up and receiving your thoughts, and whatever thoughts and opinions and assumptions that you have about them that you've built over your relationship with them will stay and play with them like little post-it notes, and they'll always show up the way that you've assumed them in the past and present to show up until you actually revise and change those assumptions about the person. Now, nobody can reject your thoughts. 100% everybody's susceptible to it. They can only reject it if you think they can reject it, and now you've just given away your power. So,
Right.
You're basically saying, well, they're going to reject my thoughts. Okay, well, you can easily say, everybody accepts my thoughts, right? And they're gonna, because they have, by them rejecting your thought, they're actually accepting your thought and then doing what you're saying to do is reject your thoughts. So,
Yes.
you can't turn this off. You can intend that it's not going to work, right? But why do that to yourself, right? So that's basically how it works, how Neville explains it, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's always happening. It's always happening immediately whenever you think something. And I have a couple examples that I wanted to share. One was my partner and I several years ago had an incident, and my mind was going to the negative story. I was actually obsessing on this negative story, and I was thinking about all of the what ifs, what if, what if, what if. And I knew that I needed to get that in check and change that because I didn't want to see that show up on my 3D. So I changed my story and I decided, you know what, nothing bad has happened. I have nothing to worry about and everything is fine. Anytime this story came into my mind, I would revert to this new outcome. Nothing bad has happened. Everything is working out fine. I have nothing to worry about. I did that for several weeks. Well, one evening, my husband and I were on a walk, and we were kind of talking about some of these things around the circumstance. And I started to go down that negative path, but I immediately pulled back. And I thought, nothing bad is happening. I have nothing to worry about. Everything is fine. And in that moment, he turned to me and he said, why are you, even thinking about this? Nothing bad has happened. You have nothing to worry about and everything is fine. Verbatim, he repeated that story that I had been going over in my mind, and it was so significant to me. For one, it was a relief. It was a confirmation that everything really was fine. But, it was also very important because it was just such a powerful reflection of how those thoughts pushed out immediately. And it was a moment where I had, the reflection show up immediately as I was thinking about it. It was very significant to me. And I made note of that. I put that down in my journal. This is something that you have as evidence of those thoughts pushing out. And then I had another story that involved my son probably 10 years ago when he was new in his school, and it was, kind of a trying time for us. He wasn't really making friends, and it was very stressful for him and very stressful for me. And so he had been invited to do something with some friends. It was at a church. It was like a lock-in. He was going to, stay the night. And when he got the invitation, he decided that he would go. However, when he came home from school, it was on a Friday, the evening of this event, he was kind of down in the dumps, and he was thinking, why should I even go? Why bother? And he was sharing this with me. He went in his room, and I began to think, he's going to go. He's going to have fun. He's going to be a part of this outing with his friends. And a little while later, it was maybe 30 minutes, he came out and he said, someone had actually messaged him and said, we really want you to join us. Everybody wants to get to know you better. Please come tonight. He came out and he said, you know what? I guess I will go. And it was probably a turnaround within 30 minutes, maybe an hour, where he, showed up and told me the story that I was affirming for him. So it was, just another example of my thoughts pushing out and him showing up to support that. So it happened very shortly in a short amount of time.
Exactly. And we were talking about, earlier, this is instant, but I think that a lot of people are saying right now, well, why do I not see things instantly in my reality? And really what it comes down to is not consistently holding that thought, not consistently persisting in that new assumption. So as quick as I go back and forth, as quick as another person goes back and forth. So it was funny. I went to go buy something at the store, and basically I always like to use a coupon because I'm on their mailing list. So I walk up and I'm looking for a coupon, and and I thought to myself, I said to her, I'm looking for the coupon. And I thought to myself, maybe she has it. And she's like, oh, well, let me look, And so she starts looking, and then I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, I can't find it. Maybe she can't either. Maybe it's expired. And she's like, oh, I can't find it. I don't have it either. Maybe it's expired. Then I was like, no, I intend. She looks again. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to look again. And then, and then I'm like, and I intend that she doesn't even notice it's expired. And she's like looking, and she says, oh, it's odd. It's in the expired column, but it's still fine. And then she scans it. So as quickly as I was thinking, she was thinking, right? But, everything is immediate. So like, for instance, I'm sure, when I've thought about, someone calling me, I've been like, oh, I intend so-and-so calls me. And then I'm like, then they're thinking, oh, I should call so-and-so. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, the next second later, I'm like, no, they're probably busy, right? And then the person's probably like, no, I'll call them later. I'm busy right now. So we need to persist in that new thought. They do get it instantly, but they may not act on it instantly, because now if we're flopping around, they're flopping around. Do you know what I mean? So, and this is proven because I'm sure all of you guys out there have had like a fleeting thought and it showed up. And that's always the question. Why did that thought show up, but my SP not, ask me out on a date? Well, there's the second reason is you may have a lot more story around them asking you out on a date if there's been a breakup. So there's going to be a lot more thoughts, because remember, Jerry's got all these Post-it notes that are going to need to be changed. So, intending he's going to profess his undying love to me, but yet Jerry's got a Post-it note of never wants to talk to me again, doesn't like me, thinks I'm needy and desperate, all these other things. We need to change that assumption that we think that they have to, they want to be with me, they think I'm great, they love everything about me. So it's sometimes a lot more than just one thought, because Jerry isn't just one thought, there's a group of assumptions that we've attached to each person, right?
Right. Yes. And that's where that mental diet is so important, being aware of what you're thinking, because moment to moment to moment, our thoughts are shifting and changing. So you want to direct everything to the outcome that you want, the end goal. You want to always direct it to the thing that you want to see show up in your 3D reality. And it's a moment to moment challenge sometimes to stay on top of that. We don't always recognize how those thoughts are shifting, but be aware of them constantly, moment to moment. That mental diet is what's creating everything.
Exactly. Now we're going to get into feeling it real. How does feeling it real actually get involved in this? Because Neville says you must feel it real. Well, I've got an example for you. And actually, it's sort of a success story. It depends on what you define as successful. I'm defining this as they had these thoughts, they created this, it showed up, they didn't like it, but that's fine. It still manifested. So I was with somebody and I was driving and I said, do you want to go for dinner? And the person with me was like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, okay, well, why don't we go to this restaurant? And they were like, oh, you know what? There's always a big long line up there. We're going to get there. We're going to have to wait like 40 minutes. We're never going to get in. Oh my God, we're pretty much going to starve before we get in. And they were actually getting mad and upset. Like this had actually already happened. And I looked at them and I'm like, wow, I'm like, you're already getting upset and this hasn't even happened yet, you know? And then funny thing enough, right? Like I didn't revise the story. I just like kind of, you know, let it go. And sure enough, we went and there was a huge lineup because I agreed with them. Right. And I was, you know, I was like, whatever. And sure enough, there was a huge lineup. Right. So we feel it real the minute we make the statement. Okay. So like in that example, my friend was sitting there getting all worked up and worried about this big long lineup and already getting angry about it just by thinking about it and talking about it. So in that moment, she was feeling that experience real. And then sure enough, we showed up to the restaurant and boom, it was real. It manifested. There it was in all its glory, a 40-minute wait list, you know? And were we starving? Absolutely. So, but, you know, so the minute you make the thought, the minute you have the thought, you're feeling it real because the only real thing we have is our thoughts. The rest of it is just a reflection of our past thoughts, right?
Yes. And those thoughts create the feeling, they create the emotion. So it's focusing on the thought. You know, you just have to focus the thought to create the feeling. And the feeling is what will align you to the experience. So, you know, be aware of those thoughts. Redirect your thoughts. You're going to create the feeling that you want by focusing on the thought. The thoughts are so important. They're so important. We don't actually realize how important they are, but that's where it begins. And that is what creates a feeling. And that is what gives us the evidence in the 3D.
Exactly. And, you know, and then one thing, right, with thought transmission, okay, because now that person couldn't create in my reality. So how did I experience that, even though she created it? Really good question. Not sure if any of you guys had it, but I'm going to answer it. So basically, when she was complaining and creating this huge story about there's going to be this big wait list, we're going to starve to death, blah, 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 I was agreeing with it. And when we listen to something, we actually repeat it in our head. So when you're actually listening to someone and they're talking to you, you actually repeat what they say in your head. That's how you listen, right? So if that's because like someone can talk to you, and if you're not listening to them, like actively listening, you won't, it's just like want, and you're like, what did you say? But if you're actually listening to the words someone's saying, you're actually repeating it for yourself. So I actually created that in my reality. And of course, while she was saying it and I was hearing it and repeating it to myself to actually listen to it, I was getting upset. So of course I created it. Now, how could I have prevented that? I could have easily, after I heard all of that, turn around and say in my head, no, I intend that there's no wait list. I intend that we get in right away. You know, I'm not even saying I intend. There'll be no wait list. We'll get in right away. And I could have, you know, even verbally said it to my friend as well. That would have, you know, helped to create it as well. But I didn't actually do that. I didn't revise what I was hearing. So, you know, it's so important what you do take in to yourself. And, you know, if you're watching things, you know, about breakups and stuff, you know, you've got to be careful and say to yourself, no, that's not how my relationship is going to go. My relationship is going to go like this. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's about, you know, being aware of what you're consuming, right?
Absolutely. You do not have to agree with what other people are saying. I think that that's very, very important because you decide in your quantum bubble, in your reality, what is going to go. So you can reject those things that don't agree with your story. You have that right in your quantum bubble, in your reality, to decide what is going to happen, what is going to go. So, you know, you have to get very firm on that and realize that it's your reality. And that's where recognizing that you are the only operant power, that you are the God of your reality is a very important, because that's affirming for your desire, not what someone else is saying, but your desire.
Exactly. And, I think that's maybe one of the main reasons why I only choose to have positive people in my life because, I find people that are constantly complaining or negative, that it's a lot of work to revise what I listen to them complain about. Like, and not only that, like when you listen to someone complain and you're like listening to it, it's like it drains you because, you're feeling that real in that moment as well. So, I personally, if I can't recreate someone to be positive, I just move on because it's not worth the time and trouble of me trying to clean up everything they complain about. And there's really nothing wrong with that. It's not a failure, of any sort. It's a matter of a choice of who do you want to surround yourself with. You know what I mean? And so.
Yes, absolutely. Because you get to pick and choose what you allow to come into your experience. And, again, you are the God of your reality. So you decide what you're going to allow in. You decide what you're going to agree with. You decide what you want to focus on as far as recreating. It's all up to you. Totally.
Exactly. So my advice to everybody is like create a list of little things that prove everyone as you pushed out to you, people saying things, people doing things, people buying you coffees, opening you doors, buying you dinner, bringing you lunch, bringing you flowers, and, really get some experience with this because it's those little tiny moments, like what Angela shared, and like, and what I shared with my experiences that, even though the manifestation wasn't good, it was still like, well, it's still working, right? So, it's about keeping that faith, right? And, the more you can remind yourself, that everybody's listening to your thoughts and everyone is you pushed out, and the more evidence you have of it and the more you believe it, the easier it is actually to stay on a mental diet. Like, because the alternative, the stakes, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But everything's changeable. Nothing's set in stone. Just as easily as you created it, you can change it. And that restaurant, we could have intended that all of a sudden everybody was like annoyed with the wait and left, and then we were next in line, or that someone let us ahead of them, or whatever. The party in front of us was too big, and they had a smaller table, and we jumped the line. There could have been many, many things. So never think that just because something showed up, it has to be. There's always can change it just as easily as you've done it, right? So.
Yes.
I intend this has helped everybody. They've had an aha moment. They're just like, aha.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely. It's the way to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today, Angela.
Thank you, Amanda.
And guys, thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.